Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Irvin, also known as Koboman. Welcome to another Tier 2 Help Desk training session. Today we're going to work on some trouble tickets, and we're also going to use ChatGPT, which is an AI. We're going to tell it to act as tech support. That way we can kind of double check our work in the sense to see if ChatGPT or AI can come up with the same answers that I can, or maybe even better answers. We'll see. All right, let's get into it. All right, so let's talk about this ticket here. It says VDI access, and it says one of our faculty is unable to use VDI. So what is VDI? VDI stands for Virtual Desktop Infrastructure. In the nutshell, VDI is a virtual desktop or a virtual computer. And here are some examples of that. I'm going to minimize this here and show you Hyper-V Manager. Hyper-V Manager can help you create a lot of different virtual desktops. In this case, we have a bunch of them here. So here is client 1, client 2, client 3, 4, and yes, of course, you can run servers. Here is a domain control server. Here is a content management server. All of these are virtual desktops. And how do you connect to those? Well, you can do it simply by using remote desktop, or you can use alternatives like Citrix Workspace. And we're going to expand on all of these things. But let's go back to our ticket and kind of double check to what the issue is. It says he keeps getting an error message that he does not have access. So what are some things you have to do in order to make this happen? Of course, you have to have a virtual machine ready that is available for this user, and then you have to, of course, grant them access to it, which is something that desktop support would do. However, let's kind of talk about this because I really want you to understand how this actually works. So here is one instance running of a virtual desktop in the background. If I wanted to connect to it and I was giving access to it, chances are maybe they would just give me a name of a virtual desktop, meaning a computer name, also known as a workstation name, or a host name, which is what you would really want to consider as a description for a computer or a name for a computer when it comes to the computing part of it. So let's just call it a host name, but it's the same thing as a computer name. So if I had access to this and I am a user somewhere, in this case I think the user's name was Chuck, all I have to do is just need the name of the computer, which is here in this case it's client 1. I know it says here HYD, but it's actually client 1 in this case. So I would just open up my remote desktop. If this is the way to access this virtual desktop, I would just open up remote desktop connection, type in client 1 and select connect. So I'm just going to open it up by double clicking it here just to show you that this virtual machine or virtual desktop is running. And here it is, it's coming up and I can just log in. I can select other user, it's Windows 11, and then I can just type in whatever my credentials are, type in my password, hit enter, and now I have a virtual desktop infrastructure, or also known VDI or remote desktop, or however you want to call it, then you have access to it. Now, sometimes the user, it says here, obviously other user, and whatever that other user is, sometimes they need to have certain things done to the remote computer so they are allowed to connect to those machines. So we're going to kind of recreate and troubleshoot that as well. Now, let me just briefly touch on another way on how you can access these VDIs if it's set up like that within your business. Now, of course, there are other software that could provide this type of service, but I believe Citrix is one of the most popular ones. So let's talk about how that looks like whenever you are a user or a person that wants to use these virtual desktops. Here is what virtual desktop looks like within Citrix. So you go to a website link, and this is just an example. I'm not actually logged in because I can't show you what it looks like at my work because it's a security issue, but this is exactly how it looks like. You would go to a web page, and this is just an example of where I went to just to see this image. You would go into the web page, you would log into it, and then you would see a bunch of different icons. All of these icons are similar to what VDIs are, Now, VDI usually refers to actual computer, a virtual computer. However, everything that you see on Citrix-based platform, in this case, all of these, for example, Access 2090, Acrobat DC, Adobe After Effects, all of these things that you see, and it could be many, many different applications, you can click on any of these and it would pull it up, but it would actually be a virtual desktop that's handling the running of it. So you would get a pop-up, and for example here Access 2019 would appear and it would look just like a regular application. However, that application is run on a virtual desktop. So it'll be the same difference is if I was to log into this virtual machine here that I showed you earlier. I'm just going to log into it. And it will be the same difference as if I was to log into this virtual desktop and open up Access 2019, except you wouldn't see borders. You wouldn't see any of these bezels. It would just look like a regular application that you've pulled up, but it would actually be run on a remote server, which in this case is Citrix. Now, there is a desktop version of Citrix as well, and you can run it a couple of different ways. You can Citrix receiver on your computer to handle that part of it, which is fine, which is actually probably a prerequisite in order to run this off of a website. But you can also install Citrix Workspace. And if you look on the bottom here, I have it installed. I'm just going to click it to open up to show you how it looks like, in the sense that this is a desktop software that would give you the same access. So in here, you have Citrix Workspace open, and you would type in my work email at mywork.com. Right, so you would basically just simply log in with your work email, whatever that is, and then once you log in, it would look exactly like this here. In the sense, you would have home, you have apps, and then you can select any of those apps and run them. So that's how you have different options of VDIs, or virtual desktops, if you will. This is a really good opportunity to actually learn of these different types of virtual desktops that people use. So why do people use them? Well, different reasons. The reason number one that I showed you, if it's just a regular virtual desktop, first one here, this is just a traditional full virtual desktop, full virtual computer that the user can use, and they can use it for whatever the business reason is for that, whatever the work reason is for that. And that's fine. This is one way. However, the main difference here is that if you use Citrix Workspace, and let me go back to our example, if you use Citrix, you can control the access to all of these virtual machines, which provide you with these virtual software. So if somebody just needs access to Adobe After Effects 2020, you can simply grant them access to only that. And once they log into Citrix, they would see Adobe After Effects 2020, and they can just click on that. And that way you can control the access to different applications. Software tools like Citrix that give you this type of capability are good when it comes to controlling access to specific applications, and that's fine. And how can you grant, so for example, if you are working tier 2 or some kind of other tech support, chances are you can also grant access for a specific person to these virtual software that is available through Citrix. And how can you do that? Well, you simply pull up AD, for example, Active Directory. You would look up the user in there, and then you would add him to the group that has access to this specific software that's within Citrix. So I have the main controller here. I'm going to log into it and show you how you can do that. Here we go, Admin Tools, Active Directory. So if it's set up like this, this is how you would grant access to those individual software pieces or individual virtual machines that are within Citrix. So you can simply search for the user, right click your domain, find user, and I think I have test user in here somewhere. Test user, here we go, test user. Let's pick this one here. And then if it's created like this, you can go to member off, select add, and then you would type in, what do we talk about? Adobe. Let's just pretend it's this. Whatever it is that you have access to that you can grant. So you would, for example, say, let's say it's called Citrix dash Adobe 2020. Select OK. Of course, it doesn't exist in here, but anyways, once you do that, it would appear for this user. You would select apply, OK, and then that person, next time they log into Citrix, they will have access to Adobe. And that's how you would control that part of it. However, if we're going back to just, hey, I just want a virtual desktop, I just want a virtual desktop machine, you can also create those within Citrix as well. But if it's just a virtual desktop and you just want somebody to like basically give them access to virtual desktop, you can also do that by completely bypassing Citrix Workspace. You can certainly do that. So once you have a client running like this one here, and I want to give a test user 4 that we just talked about, that I just pulled up in the main controller, if I want to give them access to that, I simply have to do is open up client 1, and whether it's a domain administrator or a local administrator, you should be able to grant this. But I recommend you log in as a domain admin, or you can simply manage it. And you can do this here through the domain controller as well. Same deal. Active Directory users. In this case, we're going to look up the workstation itself, which is called client 1, so that way we can manage it. Did I spell that correctly? Well, let me see. Let me just browse to it. Hopefully it's still in there. Okay, client 1 is not in there. Anyways, client 2 is there. Let me make sure it's running properly. So client 1 is not joined the main. That's okay. We're going to kick it off. Client 2 to make sure it's running. Same difference. Okay, close. This is a script that's going to rejoin client 1 to our domain, so that way I don't have to do it manually, because it's going to recreate this virtual lab or PC lab, computer lab that is provided by Microsoft. If you need a link to that, let me know in the comments below, obviously. And let's select client 2, manage, and we can do this on local level. Manage. Come on. It's connecting. So we're going to remotely manage access to client 2 on this computer. We're just doing it through Active Directory. Here's our client 2. And if you want to give remote desktop access to this person, so to test user 4, we would expand local users and groups on that remote computer. You can see how our computer management is now connected to client 2. So it's part of the domain, and you can also do this by going to action, connect to another computer if you have computer management open up on your computer. You don't have to be necessarily doing this from the domain controller. If you have domain access, or admin access I should say, you can run computer management on your just regular computer and then just go to connect to another computer, so and then type in client 2. So if I do this here and just type in client 2 client 1, okay, and then click OK, and it would basically be the same thing. So we need to add this test user 4 to a local group that has the ability to use just a plain old remote desktop, which again is this remote desktop connection. So that way, whenever they type in this case client 2, they can connect to it and they would have the ability to log in as well. So we're selecting groups in this case because we need to add test user 4 to the remote desktop users, which is right here. By adding test user 4 to this, now test user 4 has the ability to, and matter of fact, let's just read what it says here for the description of this. Members in these groups are granted the right to log in remotely. So this is the login part of it. This is just so they can remotely log into this computer. Now, sometimes you have to also add this part of it where it says remote management users, depending how it's set up in your business. But it says here members of this group can access WMI resources over management protocol. So workstation management in Windows. Anyways, sometimes you have to do this as well. So add this one for the user. Again, we are granting test user 4 the ability to just use remote desktop and log into this. And then sometimes you would have to do it for the other ones. And I forget which one was a system managed account groups or something. One of these other ones, sometimes you will get an error. But generally speaking, if you want to allow somebody to use just a regular remote desktop on a remote computer, you have to make sure that they're added locally to remote desktop users or remote desktop or remote management users as well. If you get an error, carefully read it to what it says, and it would say, for example, this user is not part of this group. We'll go in here and look for that. I forget the third most common error that comes up. I want to say it's this one, system managed account groups or something like that. One of these. But generally speaking, you just need remote desktop users and maybe this one here. And then that person can open up a remote desktop, type in client to select connect, and they would be able to connect, right? So I know it failed there because this computer that I'm using here is not part of the same domain as or same network that these virtual desktops are running on. This is why I was getting that error. It has nothing to do with access, is what I was showing you earlier. All right, so that's that, and that actually turned out to be quite a bit of things to talk about. Now let's see what ChatGPT can tell us, and I'm going to tell ChatGPT AI to act as tech support. I'm going to say, please take a role of support. Please provide help desk troubleshooting steps for each trouble ticket presented. Let's see what happens there. So, and it says here, okay, so it says here, I'll act as help desk troubleshoot. Okay, sure, whatever. Okay, stop generating. Okay, I'm going to paste the ticket in there as it is, just to see what it says here. So the answers it's providing me, the answers that it's providing me are very extensive. Let me see what it does here. It says gather information, obtain the faculty member's name, contact information. That's fine. This is just part of help desk. You have to gather information first. And the second thing here is check user permissions. Of course, this is what we've talked about as well as a first troubleshooting thing we can check on because it's kind of self-explanatory. It says he keeps getting an error message that it does not have access. So, of course. Account settings. Ensure that faculty's member account is not locked or disabled. Sometimes repeat login attempts can lead to account lockouts. That's actually a pretty good point. But it wouldn't say necessarily that doesn't have access. It would just say it's locked. Or, I mean, depends. But it should say it's locked. But yeah, that's definitely a good thing to check. We're still talking about access, so we're still on the right track. And here it says network connectivity confirmed that faculty member has stable internet connection. Yes, that's fine. And all these other stuff here, VDI service status, credentials verification, this should be number 3 or 3 here instead of account status necessarily, and then account status as network as a step 4. Password resets group membership. So this should be up there higher too, group memberships. Access policies. See, we just talked about all of this. But this other stuff, for example, network connectivity, that necessarily wouldn't be the case because it specifically says to us that it's access issue. There's no access, as in the sense you can't log in. Now, if it was access, as in I can't reach this remote server because it's down, then it would be different. But in this case, the assumption is that there's no login access. All right. So these are all good. These are all good steps. And the last one here, if the issue remains unresolved after troubleshooting, escalate the ticket to a higher level of support or the IT department responsible for VDI management. So these are really good answers. And yeah, I'm actually pretty happy with the result that ChatGPT gave us. So that's cool. We're going to move on, and I'm thinking right now whether I should keep going with this, because if I keep going, I feel like too much information will make it confusing. And if I switch to another topic, because this one was so lengthy that it also might confuse and might be a forgetful thing, while these things are very important, especially in today's age when everything's becoming virtual and cloud based. Yes, you can have all of these VDIs running on a cloud, which, what is a cloud? I mean, you can consider that anything that's, whether it's on the internet or whether it's just set up as part of the network, right? Depends how you look at it. To me, typically cloud means just something that's beyond your local network. If you're talking about Office products, like if you are using Office as part of your work, so you can go to office.com, and then to me, that's beyond your local network. To me, that's cloud. However, if somebody starts talking about cloud and they talk about virtual machines like these that are running here, this can also be considered a cloud. It's kind of a broad description of things that you say to people who don't necessarily understand what, computers or technology. So you just say it's on the cloud. It's somewhere on the cloud. Okay, whatever. It's somewhere on the network. Somewhere on the network running as a virtual machine. Yeah, I think I will leave it at that and make it just a window of its own because I feel like it's very important. If you need access to this virtual lab set up from Microsoft, it's available. You can just Google it and look for Microsoft PC Lab or Computer Lab. I think it's Microsoft's Computer Lab. You can look for it, and if it's really hard to find, let me know and I'll give you the link. Also, if you need the link to this Chat GPT, and I've done this before, I have different versions of Chat GPT. If you need a link to this specifically, where you're seeing here, I can send you the link to this as well. You see, I have a way to share chat, and it will give you exactly what I've typed in here to get these type of results. Like for example here, please take a role of tech support, and you can get different results depending on how you tweak AI. And if you want me to talk about AI and more utilization when it comes to tech support and making a specific tool that gives you the best results, yeah, I can talk about that. I can make a specific video for this. Matter of fact, I have a fairly recent video talking about AI and how you can use it as a tool, for tech support. But yeah, it can be tweaked even more. And I have results of that. Look for that video. There, it's on my channel. I want to say it's like, a couple of months ago maybe. And there's a link to that as well. So you can check that out and you can tweak it so that it works for you in your work environment. But of course, if you decide to use ChatGPT or any AI as a tool while you're doing tech support, make sure you run it by your bosses. Make sure it's allowed to use within your work environment because of security issues. What I've pasted in here as a ticket, you don't want to release any personal information here. Notice how I didn't copy the person's name or anything like that, because you just never know. But generally speaking, all the videos that I make do not release any personal information unless it's otherwise public. This is why I have a statement in front of my video that no personal information is being leaked or anything like that unless that person doesn't care. In this case, it's you know, or if it's just public information, you know, if it's just public information. And I'm just going to close the ticket, say, please reach out to, I'm just going to say desktop support team. You can grant, if you are able to grant access to VDIs, then the solution would be that. But if you don't, please reach out to desktop support team or whoever has the ability to grant access. Resolved. Thank you so much for watching. I don't know why I started talking like that. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your support. I hope you're enjoying these videos, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.